From his temporary home in New York City, Malcolm Turnbull has made a spectacular re-entry into Australian politics with a suggestion his challenger, Peter Dutton, may not be eligible to sit in Parliament. The former Prime Minister is applying pressure to Scott Morrison to have Mr Dutton referred to the High Court over his family's financial interests in subsidised childcare centres. And in his former deputy, Julie Bishop, Malcolm Turnbull has found a cautious ally for his cause on the coalition's backbench. From Parliament, here's political reporter Caitlin Gribbin.
While the political establishment partied,
nice to see you. We've met you on your den a couple of times.
Reflecting from the other side of the world was a man now on the outer. Mid-morning from New York came a message to Malcolm Turnbull's former colleagues. Via Twitter, he wrote, "The point I've made to Scott Morrison is that Peter Dutton should be referred to the High Court," a reference to Mr Dutton's interests via a trust in childcare centres. But it wasn't advice colleagues back in Canberra had sought.
If you're a leader who's lost his job, well, you know, and you're sitting in New York, sometimes you want to have commentary about what is going on in Australia.
Someone once told me that in this job all contributions should be gratefully received.
Received, but not necessarily to be acted upon.
As the Prime Minister, I'll obviously make the decisions.
Quite clearly what we have here is Scott Morrison running a protection racket for Peter Dutton.
The lower house has already dealt with the issue.
The result of the division is ayes 68, noes 69.
Narrowly voting down a move to send Mr Dutton to the High Court. And while not definitive, the government's most senior legal advisor has suggested the minister's likely to be eligible to remain in Parliament.
Mr Turnbull never raised once with me any issue around Section 44. His staff never raised it with my office. He never asked me for the legal advice that I had that showed I had no problem at all.
I think people have had enough of the lawyers' picnics on these sort of issues, and they want us to focus completely and totally on what the nation needs here and now.
But if the Parliament does again have its say on the issue...
If there's a vote on the matter, well, I'll make my mind up at that time.
Malcolm Turnbull's obvious hostility towards Peter Dutton flows from the Home Affairs Minister's unsuccessful leadership tilt, and the scars from that chaotic time haven't healed elsewhere. Julia Banks, who's promised to quit Parliament at the next election, has used a speech to call for gender quotas in the Liberals.
Parliament must be represented by a 50-50 split of men and women in both major parties.
The Victorian MP says she was subject to bullying and intimidation during the leadership spill. Other women have threatened to name names. Julie Bishop says they wouldn't have to do that if complaints were taken seriously.
It's a very difficult situation where you are accusing others of behaviour that could be, well, in some instances illegal, to name them.
The Prime Minister says allegations will be dealt with internally. Caitlin Gribbin, ABC News, Canberra.